Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto was banished from Konoha and rebuilt the Uzumaki clan, part 2. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. I'm afraid not. The Hokage wanted people to treat Naruto like a hero and sealed the fox into Naruto with that hope. Unfortunately, the general population wanted a scapegoat instead and found it in him. But despite all of that, Naruto didn't give in to his despair and decided to do something about it. So yeah, call him Ndobi or whatever you want to call him, but don't you ever say that Naruto doesn't know what it means to suffer. Look kid, before we get off topic more than we already have, I should probably just wrap this up and get to my main point. The fact of the matter here is that you made a big mistake by trying to go to Orochimaru, and not just in legal terms. Believe me kid, killing your brother won't mean anything if you get yourself or others like Naruto killed too. What makes you say that? Simple. Hurting the innocent in order to kill Itachi would be no different than hurting Naruto in order to kill the Kyuubi. Sasuke saw the reasoning there, but was confused on another matter. What does that have to do with Orochimaru? Orochimaru went after your brother first, he wanted his eyes more than yours. The reason he settled for you is because he couldn't defeat Itachi. If you can, it's basically telling the snake you're an even bigger threat than Itachi was. By going to Orochimaru, you're basically putting yourself in his hands to kill you when it's clear you're stronger than he is. And if he teaches you how to kill Itachi, he can also teach you in a way that guarantees you have a weakness he can exploit. Trust me kid, there is simply no way going to Orochimaru would have turned out in your favor. He went after Itachi already? Sasuke asked, not aware of this. If he couldn't beat him, how could he possibly help me? Damn it to hell, Naruto was right, I really was making a mistake trusting Orochimaru to give me what I wanted. Just on my reasoning for going to Orochimaru, it was a bad idea from the start. That doesn't even include why Naruto wanted to stop me. At this point, however, there was one question that was ringing loudly in Sasuke's mind. Why are you telling me all this? Sasuke asked. Why? Well, remember how you faulted the villagers for making an uninformed decision about Naruto? Here I was trying to get the facts straight for you. I'm not going to tell you what to decide, but at least you'll make a smarter choice now. While this does help, the reason I'm telling you this is for Naruto's sake more than anything. I know what Naruto was going through when he went to stop you because I tried but wasn't able to stop Orochimaru from leaving. I know what Naruto would have to go through if you did, and I don't want to see Naruto having to go through that pain of losing you the way I lost my own best friend. He's already suffered enough in his life. That's the main reason that I'm talking to you, and I'd like to think this way you're less likely to end up like Orochimaru yourself. Or for that matter, Itachi. I will never be like Itachi. Sasuke insisted. Jiraiya did not look like he was convinced. Your brother severed all bonds to this village and the people in it, you included, to pursue a selfish goal, breaking the hearts of those he left behind. And here you tried to sever you bonds to the villages, the people in the villages, which nearly hurt a lot of people who care about you, Sasuke. So tell me, how is you going to Orochimaru any different from what Itachi did to you? Keep that in mind before you try to pull a stunt like that again. Jiraiya said before disappearing. That still doesn't tell me why he spoke to me. He thought to himself. Despite being in a bed already, Sasuke felt like he had just collapsed from taking all this information in, and yet he was still being left with a lot of questions. What did he mean by I could become like Itachi? He murdered my entire family for fun. How can I do the same when my family's already dead? Unless he meant similar in principle than in action. Maybe he was talking about Naruto, Sakura, and the others. He closed his eyes and a memory came back to him. Back in Wave, where Kakashi was talking to Inari after Naruto chewed him out. Sasuke had been going out for a walk, one of his few hobbies, when he passed by and heard something that caught his attention. Naruto's had a terrible life for as long as he could remember, but he decided to stop crying about it and make it better himself. One of the few things he hates is seeing people give up before they even try the same. I didn't think about it at the time, I assumed Kakashi-sensei was just saying that to appeal to the boy. But now it makes sense. Sasuke thought. A lifetime of being treated like a monster. And obviously he didn't know the reason why that entire time. Who would look at a little kid and say, "You're the container for the monster that killed a lot of people"? How the heck did he survive like that? And for that matter, why would he want to become Hokage of a village that made his life miserable? I mean, if for example Konoha made Itachi kill my clan, I know I sure as hell wouldn't feel any loyalty to this place. Or maybe he wanted to do it to gain those bonds that he wanted so badly, like the one I tried to cut by trying to kill him. Maybe's that what that old man was trying to say. Sasuke closed his eyes and began to sleep. Inside Sasuke's mind. Sasuke opened his eyes after a while, only to see a gray mist-like haze completely blocking his vision. Where am I? I can't see anything, he thought, with nothing but the gray mist-like haze before him. He started walking, but it didn't feel like something he was doing consciously. His footsteps sounded muffled, yet it felt like he was walking atop something squishy and wet atop something hard. All of a sudden his right arm moved against his wishes and acted like it was batting something away. But the sounds of screams were heard. What's going on? He asked. At that the haze began to lift. He saw he was in his childhood home, back when his family was alive. And in front of him were two dead bodies, looking just like the corpses of Uchiha Fugaku and Makoto. What? No, not again, he thought, kneeling down on the blood-covered floor. When he got a closer look, he gasped. It wasn't his parents that were dead, it was Naruto and Sakura. Killed by an obvious and fatal sword wound. In shock Sasuke jerked up and saw a mirror that hadn't been there before. But his reflection, it wasn't him, nope, it was Itachi's face, covered by a blood splatter, looking back at him, as he smiled back. Something that Sasuke couldn't remember Itachi doing anymore. No, this can't be real, he thought, looking away from the mirror and discovering a blood-covered sword in his right hand. The sword was angled to give off his reflection too, and it was still the face of Itachi looking back at him. No, he told himself, dropping the sword and rushing out of the house. I am not like Itachi, he yelled as he got out of the house, only to see the horrifying sight of numerous bodies in the street, all looking like Naruto and Sakura. No. End flashback. When finally I woke up and realized that it was bad dream, and after thinking about what the meaning behind that dream, I finally understood what Naruto and that old man Jiraiya were trying to tell me. Sasuke took a drink of water, tired for speaking so much. Told you you'd want to sit down. Sakura and Hinata were indeed sitting down, since Sasuke spared no details, especially the one about Naruto being a Jinchuriki. Hinata looked upset, but not as much as she had before, and Sakura looked downright mortified. That can't be true. I mean, it's got to be a lie. Why would he lie about that, Sakura? Sasuke asked. Hinata closed her eyes. It's not a lie, so you knew. Sasuke asked. I can see chakra. I've always been able to see Naruto-kun had a type not normal for a human. It was easy to figure out the cause when I learned more about him. But if you knew, what about Neji? Sakura asked. I don't know, I never asked, and for the majority of my life I never had a reason to ask. There was a time he wanted to kill me, remember? I wasn't about to give him a reason to hate Naruto-kun too. Sakura looked at the floor for a moment. Mom, Dad, is this why you told me to avoid him? You think Naruto is some kind of monster? What made her stomach churn was the fact that she had never asked for a reason to their claim. As a child, she had just assumed if her parents said it then it had to be true. They told her it was better for her to avoid him and not make friends, and she did it without question, even going as far as becoming close to an enemy even when her parents didn't tell her to. Naruto. I'm so sorry. So now what, Uchiha-san? Hinata asked. Does this change anything for you? Does Naruto-kun's life actually have value to you now? You say that like it never did. Sasuke accused. Did it? Hinata pressed. You admitted you were willing to kill him to get some kind of upgrade for you eyes. Just be glad you didn't, or else I'd personally make you blind. There's no need, Sasuke said before showing his newly gained Mangekyo Sharingan, which looked an awful lot like a diagram of a red atom surrounded by the black of his pupil. Somehow, I got it without killing him. How? Hinata asked. Did you kill someone else here? No. To be honest, I don't know how I got it. I didn't even know I got it at all until a guard came in and pointed it out. Maybe that dream had something to do about it. Maybe killing your best friend doesn't require such a literal act, but the strong enough belief that you succeeded in doing it. Or maybe the guilt or grief you felt caused you to awaken it. Sakura suggested. Sasuke shrugged and sighed for a moment. Maybe you're right. Though now I'm not too proud of what I tried to do to get it. I screwed up. Big time. There's no denying that. Well, at least you're admitting it. Hinata said. But this doesn't mean you're back on my good side. Naruto-kun nearly died because of you. An apology won't be enough for me. Why should I apologize to you? This doesn't apply to you in any way. Sasuke-san, Naruto-kun is more than just your teammate. He is my heart. I can't live without him any more than you can live with only half your body. Killing him is personal to him. Even if Naruto-kun can forgive you with just an, I'm sorry, I won't. How can you hold a grudge when he doesn't? Sasuke asked. You must not understand women that well, Sasuke-kun. Sakura said, agreeing with Hinata in principle. And I probably never will. Deal with it. Well, understand this, Sasuke-san. Threaten Naruto-kun again and I'll make you regret it. Hinata warned. After all, you just admitted that you felt weak. I admit nothing. Besides, with my current condition, what do you have to be afraid of? The last time you were in a hospital, the very first thing you did once you got out was fight Naruto-kun. Sakura nodded. She's right, Sasuke-kun, you did do that. Yes, and I lost that time. Then I fought him a second time, and ended up here because, thankfully, I lost. I doubt the third time is going to be the charm even with my Mangekyo Sharingan, especially knowing what I know. He commented. Speaking of which, what is your stance on that, Sakura? Huh? Hinata looked to the Pinkett. Yes, what do you think of Naruto-kun now? Honestly, he's clearly stronger than I ever gave him credit for. And I don't mean physically, but emotionally. She said. Well, I've said all I want to say. Hinata said, standing up. I'm going back to him now. What are you going to tell him? Sasuke asked. Hinata looked at him briefly, then back to the door. Only what he needs to hear. She then opened the door, but before she could even step out, the body of a person went flying past the door like a projectile. Moving too fast to see properly, especially since it was something she hadn't expected to see. What the hell was that? Sasuke asked, as he was able to see what happened from his bed. What was what? Sakura added, getting up since she hadn't seen it, but she did hear a resulting crash. Hinata looked into the hall, and saw at the end to her left was a fuming Tsunade. Hokage-sama. If you're looking for Naruto, you better get to him quickly before someone else does. She warned. Without anything else needed, Hinata bolted down the hall to her loved one's room. Sakura stayed by the door. What could this mean? It sounds like someone's doing something to Naruto they shouldn't be, and the Hokage didn't approve of it. If that person she sent flying is part of it, she's going to grind them into fish cakes. Sasuke guessed before making suggestion to Sakura. I think you should go check on Naruto as well. You sure? I'm not in danger, but Naruto might. Go, he told her. She nodded. I'll be back, Sasuke-kun. She then ran to Naruto's room while asking herself what was happening to her blonde teammate. Naruto's room, Konoha Hospital. Some time earlier, while Sasuke was dealing with visitors, Naruto had some of his own. Hey Ero Sennin, who'd you bring with you? Jiraiya frowned while his company either chuckled or smiled at the title. Tsunade, who was also there, didn't react since it was nothing new to her ears. Show some respect, kid. When you stop peeping, I might consider it. The young blonde looked to the four redheads. This guy's is a peeping addict or something. He goes to peep into the women's part of the hot springs here all the time. At hearing this, Ray turned to look at Jiraiya with a scowl on his face. Hey old man, if I ever find out that you ever peeped on my sister, you're a dead man walking. You got it. Hey, if I wanted to kill myself, I'd find a less painful way than doing that. Jiraiya claimed. One guy tried it and got caught, and ended in a coma for several months because of it. That woman's temper would have been more lethal than Tsunade's was that one time she caught me. I never even considered doing research if she was around. Wait, the one time I caught you? Tsunade asked with a hiss. You mean there were times you peeped and I didn't catch you? To be fair, Hokage Dono, if you didn't catch him, that's your own fault. Kikyo stated. As Tsunade glared at Kikyo because of that jab, Ray noticed that Naruto kept staring at him. Hey kid, something wrong? Ray asked. You look familiar. Have I seen you before? Naruto asked to the man closest to Jiraiya. Yeah, you have. You've forgotten me already, kid. You know what? Never mind. The name's Ray. Memorize it this time. Naruto, we're here to tell you something critical, but rest assured no decision will be made for you. Tsunade told the young blonde reassuringly. These four people here, this is going to be hard to explain, but they're distant relatives of yours. Needless to say, Naruto was surprised. Relatives? Naruto asked. But, how is that possible? The way everyone describes me, you'd swear I just popped out of the ground like a plant instead of having parents. You're not a mushroom, kid, you're a human being. And that means someone has to be related to you. Jun said. Then where have you been all this time? Naruto asked. Let us introduce ourselves first, Naruto. To properly answer your question, we will have to explain some things first. Kikyo started. My name is Uzumaki Kikyo. If you've ever heard of me, it was probably by my moniker One Shot Kikyo. Sorry, never heard of you. Kikyo looked to Tsunade. The depths this village has gone to keep Naruto in the dark continues to infuriate me. I'd be careful with what you say to the boy in this conversation. In all fairness, if you had gotten what you wanted when you wanted it, wouldn't your village have kept him ignorant of things from this one? Tsunade countered. Not for the sake of loyalty, Hokage Dono. Kikyo insisted. Excuse me, Tsunade asked. Konoha has kept Naruto ignorant of his clan and of our village, and from what we understand, he has little to no understanding of other villages even if he is aware of them. To me, it is a strong case against Konoha, signs that this village tried to keep him ignorant to ensure he never got the idea to leave. How could he if he was unaware of where to go? You talk big, but face it, if Naruto had been in your village you would have kept him ignorant of Konoha to make him stay with you. Tsunade accused. We would have told him his parents, but beyond that what else would he be required to know? Mia asked. What was he required to know about Uzushio? Oh, I don't know, maybe the fact that he had a family there. Jun answered on Kikyo's behalf, albeit sarcastically. Knowing about you guys wouldn't have changed a damn thing. Did you ever stop to think that maybe not everything can work out in one person's favor? Tsunade asked. You're one to talk. After all, it wasn't Naruto who spent decades trying to find the answers to their problems at the bottom of a bottle. Excuse me, but why is everyone here in my room if all you're going to do is talk about me instead of to me? Naruto asked. Sorry about that, let's continue with the introductions. I'm Uzumaki Mia. I'm Uzumaki Jun. And like I told you, I'm Uzumaki Rei. We come from the village of Uzushiogakure. Now that the introductions are out of the way, I'll cut to the chase and explain why we're here. Despite what you may be led to believe, Naruto, you do have family. In fact, you come from a shinobi clan. Just not a clan native to Konoha. Kikyo told him. Then, he started. Why are you in Konoha? Kikyo finished for him. Simple. Your mother moved here when she was a child and fell in love with your father. Before you ask, yes, we do know who your parents are and we'd be happy to tell you. Naruto, to make this easier for all of us, it would be best if you withheld any questions until we're done. Okay, Mia asked politely, and Naruto nodded. Thank you. Naruto, let me tell you the story from the beginning. Kikyo said, then cleared her throat. There's a hidden village you're unaware of, which is Uzushiogakure, the village hidden in the whirlpool. It was founded right after Konoha was, by our clan, the Uzumaki. Our village was powerful, but at some point our enemies banded together to destroy us. They almost succeeded. Keyword being, almost. We went into hiding to let the danger pass. When it did, we focused on rebuilding our village in secret while also trying to locate any of our clansmen who had remained scattered throughout the world after they failed to return. Eventually we learned about you and wanted to take you with us, but the Sandaime Hokage insisted letting you stay here was the best way to honor your parents' wishes. We decided to let you stay, but we warned him we'd come back in time and see how you were doing. The way we see it, Konoha has been holding you back and is not the best environment for you, so we'd like you to come with us. Naruto's eyes widened. You intend to take me away from my home and friends? Tsunade smiled. Looks like we have our answer. Don't get your hopes up, he's jumping to conclusions. Kikyo told her, then addressed the whiskered blonde once more. Naruto, refrain from deciding anything until we have nothing more to tell you. You want to take me from my friends. That's all I need to hear to say no, and that's that. He declared firmly. Even if we can tell you who your parents are. Naruto looked at her. You mean you won't tell me unless I agree to go with you? Now that's just low. Tsunade complained. Again, you are jumping to conclusions. Naruto, I'd be happy to tell you who they are whether or not you decide to come with us. All I ask is you at least hear why coming with us to Uzushio would be a good idea. No more. My mind is already made up. Naruto leaned back and crossed his arms. Just say what you want to say, but my mind is already made up. He's like his mother, too stubborn for his own good. Rei thought. Naruto, while I would be happy to take you back to Uzushio with us, it would be counterproductive to force you. So allow me to tell you why coming with us would be beneficial to you. Kikyo started. Uzushio is a village that was made for the Uzumaki. We have means to specifically bring out your potential. Konoha is better at helping clan ninja or those born to advantages, yet they've denied that to you even though you deserve it more. Uzushio will deny you nothing, within reason of course. This isn't to say we're bribing you. Mia added in. But think about it. Konoha hasn't exactly tried to let you become all you can be. How many fighting styles do you know? How many jutsu do you know that you didn't have to pry out of someone's hands just to learn about, let alone do? You may want what's best for this village, but is the feeling mutual? There are some people who care for me. He stated. And how many of them have taught you to become a better ninja? How many of them didn't have to be asked to teach you something? Mia added. Kakashi sensei. Naruto answered. Kid, Kakashi knew who your father was. He was actually really close to him. Rei pointed out, getting a shocked look from the whiskered blonde. You'd think he'd make it a point to watch over you since he liked your father so much, but tell me, did you even know who Kakashi was until he was assigned to be your sensei? Oh, by the way, he wasn't put in charge of your team to help you, but to help your Uchiha teammate. And what exactly has he taught you since becoming your sensei? Does that sound like someone who cares about you? Well, If you knew about my parents, what about you? He was at least there for me. Naruto claimed. Yeah, after you became good enough to be a genin. Where was he when you were younger and alone? Jun asked. Where were you when I was younger and alone? Naruto asked, making Tsunade smile and how he was turning their argument against them. He's right. You can't throw the first stone here. Tsunade couldn't resist getting in. Neither can Konoha. Kikyo stated. Naruto, as we told you, we had to hide to protect ourselves. We did come for you, but we were asked to honor the Yondaime's sacrifice for Konoha by letting you stay and get stronger. Now, if Konoha was honoring his sacrifice, wouldn't they be helping you get stronger? I have gotten stronger, he insisted. And how much of that can you credit to Konoha rather than yourself? Kikyo asked. You learned the shadow clones despite one teacher giving you the opportunity, not because of it. Your senseis all seem to prioritize chakra control lessons but never anything to do with it. After all, tree walking, water walking, and summoning were of little direct use to you in the Chunin exams, yet that's all you were taught, were you not? It helped me during the invasion. He pointed out. That is true, but the invasion was not something Konoha was preparing you for. They should have prepared you for the Chunin exams, and yet you knew nothing but tree walking and shadow clones. Naruto, do you intend to go the rest of your career doing nothing but outnumbering the enemy and beating them senseless? Being a ninja is not about doing the same jutsu over and over again. Do it too much, and someone will figure out a way around it. I have the Rasengan for that. The whiskered blonde countered smugly. Ah yes, an incomplete close-range jutsu that requires a lot of time for you to build and the luxury of a clone to create in your particular case. Kikyo said, unimpressed. How would you use that against a long-range fighter like me? I'd run up to you and, he started, but then Kikyo took out her bow and pointed it at him. Hey, put that away. You're in a hospital. Tsunade yelled. Kikyo put her bow back behind her. Relax, Hokago Dono, it was just to get a point across. Did you really believe that I would attempt to shoot him? She looked to Naruto. Before you could have even finished that sentence, I would have shot you at least 20 times with my arrows and killed you. With a clone right next to you, you would have a difficult time dodging. And with your hands full making a Rasengan, you would be unable to create a defense. With your limited arsenal, you'd stand no chance against me. And don't kid yourself into thinking just because your young adults will show you mercy. They will not. They will kill you, and they will not be afraid or ashamed to be unfair about it. This is what being a ninja is all about, kid. Your mother and father knew that all too well. Ray mentioned. While we're at it, can I tell him now, Kikyo? She nodded. Yes. He deserves to know. Now hold on. Jiraiya stepped in. Are you saying he doesn't deserve to know? Jun asked. Not at all, but maybe the timing isn't right. Jiraiya told them. How is him knowing now a bad thing? His life is already in danger even if their enemies don't know who he is, so your claim of safety is moot. Kikyo proclaimed, then looked to Naruto. Naruto, your father is Namikaze Minato and your mother was Uzumaki Kushina. You are the son of the Yondaime Hokage and princess of Uzushio. Naruto was wide-eyed and silent, with everyone waiting to see his reaction. Tsunade and Jiraiya were now very concerned, since it was entirely possible that he would lose all trust in them and via association Konoha for keeping this from him. Hey, I was going to tell him. Ray complained, only to get no response or apology. That's impossible. Surely someone would have told me that if it was true. Naruto said, his expression still shocked. It's true, kid. Ray said, then looked at Jiraiya. Go on, tell him. Be honest for once, Godfather. Jiraiya almost stumbled over with that last word. How did you know? You're not the only one good at gathering information, old man. Wait. You two knew. Naruto asked Jiraiya and Tsunade. I didn't until Jiraiya told me. Tsunade said, hoping to retain some credibility to the whiskered blonde. If he lost all trust in her, he might seriously consider leaving Konoha. But you did know, Naruto said. Both of you knew. And you never told me. He was frowning and starting to cry. And what was that godfather remark about? Oh, you don't know? Ray asked rhetorically. Ero Sennin here is your godfather, meaning your parents asked him to raise you if for some reason they couldn't. Naruto looked at Jiraiya and Jiraiya looked back, the older male looking like he didn't know if he should be remorseful or make an explanation, while the younger male looked like he didn't know whether to demand an explanation or curse him. It was probably the tensest moment of Jiraiya's life. Naruto, Jiraiya started. Naruto just looked away. Everyone, please get out. I need some time to myself. He sounded more crushed than anything, but there was a hint of suppressed anger to his tone. Kikyo nodded. Perhaps that is best. It is unreasonable to present you with so much knowledge and expect you to make an appropriate decision right away. I will only add that Uzushio has much to offer you and we do not intend to withhold anything without at least telling you why first, rather than simply not tell you that it's happening in the first place. You are a part of our clan, after all. Naruto, I need to run a checkup on you, so I'll say. Tsunade told him. We don't have to talk, but I will answer what I can. In that case, Jun, stay and do not leave until she does. Kikyo ordered and Jun nodded. Hold on there. Tsunade started. My apologies, Hokage Dono, but I'm afraid that you have no authority over us on the matter and you cannot make us leave except by force, and you and I both know how that would end. I realize that you do at least have Naruto's best interests in mind, but I simply can't take the chance of you potentially poisoning his mind with lies about our offer. Jun will only be sure you don't lie to him. If you do wish to argue your case, however, we won't stop you as long as you're honest to Naruto, Kikyo said, then ushered all but one of her group to leave. Jiraiya didn't want to, but a harsh look from Tsunade made him comply and exit as well. Tsunade went to Blonde, who was making an effort to avoid eye contact. Naruto, I know Konoha hasn't been the best home for you. She started as she ran a diagnostic jutsu over him, checking the progress of his healing. She was relieved that the wound from the Chidoris was particularly well, like his body had prioritized healing that area first. But it is your home. You can't want to just leave your home, right? Didn't you? He said, the words feeling like a kunai to the heart. Before the conversation could continue, Jun tensed and gripped his shakuho. Both of you, get ready. For what? Both Tsunade and Naruto asked. Their question was answered when the window broke and four masked ninja in Junin outfits came through. We will not allow him to leave Konoha. Hand him over now, one of the ninja ordered. Tsunade bolted up and stood before Naruto protectively. I am dealing the issue here. Stand down and leave this room or you'll be considered traitors to Konoha. The intruders were in no mood to talk. Three of them drew out ninjatus while the fourth took out shackles with Juinjutsu inscribed on them. Their intention was clear and both the Uzumaki and the two Sannin didn't need an explanation as to what those intentions were. They planned to make Naruto's choice for him and take him somewhere to ensure that he stayed whether he wanted to or not. And they were willing to kill anyone who dared to try and stop them, even the Hokage. Someone is going to pay for this act of treason. Tsunade mentally hissed as she entered her fighting stance. After I kill these backstabbers, of course. Jun held his shakuho like a bow staff, hitting the wall behind him once with it. All of a sudden the door burst open and in came Mia holding a sword, Kikyo sporting a bow, Ray with a metal chakram, and Jiraiya while unarmed was more than ready for trouble. The two sides stood off like a classic Mexican standoff, with Naruto in the middle. Your orders, Kikyo-sama? Mia asked. Kill them all and let Konoha sort them out. I second that. That said, I'm the one in charge of this village, Kikyo Dono. If anyone should be giving out orders, it's going to be me. Tsunade said before she made the first move by hitting the ninja with the shackles hard enough to send them crashing through the wall. There's more of them in the hallways. Jiraiya, Help the envoy and protect Naruto. I'll deal with these damn traitors myself, she said before going through the hole she just made to finish the job. As Jiraiya readied himself for a fight, a part of him almost felt sorry for the traitors coming down the hallways. Almost. The Uzumaki, they didn't even feel an almost in that regard. Nice to be out of here, isn't it? Choji asked as he got into the hall along with the others who had been on the retrieval mission. Thanks to Suon's help and very well detailed medical records from the Akamichi clan, he and the others were back to normal now. Except for Shikamaru, mainly because his broken finger wasn't as much a priority as the wounds of the rest of the team, but he'd be fine in a couple of days. Neji did some stretches, his body feeling stiff. We should be grateful we have the best medic in the known world here in our village. Without her, we might be in critical condition for the next week or so. Yeah, we should be sure to thank Naruto again for bringing the Hokage here. Kiba commented, remembering Hinata telling him the only reason Tsunade came back to Konoha was because Naruto got through to her, even though she wasn't entirely sure of the details. You know, did we ever thank him for that when he actually did it? I can't speak for the rest of you, but I don't recall ever thanking him. Neji admitted, feeling a bit bothered now. The others thought about it, and realized they too had failed to express gratitude to the blonde. It saddened them, their comrade had taught him the very thing that had saved their lives, and yet they, along with possibly the rest of the village, hadn't even thanked him for it. And if it weren't for a single idle comment, they likely never would have thought about it. Where is he anyway? Isn't he being released too? Choji asked, looking around and not seeing the whiskered blonde. He should. He heals better than the rest of us. Shikamaru noted. He was probably released first. No, because then he'd be checking up on us now. Kiba theorized. Unless he's getting ramen, Choji suggested. Kiba nodded. Yeah, dude loves ramen more than life itself. We should check his room first, Neji suggested. Shikamaru sighed. It's on the next floor up. Neji frowned. Your foot isn't broken, is it? Then you can't complain. Watch me, Shikamaru remarked, but nonetheless followed the Hyuga branch member to the stairs up. As soon as they got to the next floor, but before any of the boys got off the steps themselves, they saw Hinata dart past them, followed by Sakura. The Pinkett however saw them, whereas Hinata didn't, thus she stopped. Can you fight? She asked. What? Kiba asked. Can you fight? Sakura pressed, getting impatient. We're not supposed to, but I suppose if we have to, Choji started. Then be ready for it, Sakura warned, then went back after Hinata. Shikamaru groaned then frowned at Neji. This is your fault, you know. Hey, you want to leave, no one's stopping you. Neji hissed before following Sakura, which Choji and Kiba were already doing. Shikamaru sighed, knowing he could just leave, yet his body and morals and the voice in his head that sounded like his mother just would not let him. Damn it, why can't the world just go on pause? Despite his reluctance, he followed. There was some fighting in the halls, mostly between masked Anbu and medical nin, so the younger ninja were being overlooked and allowed to follow Hinata, who ran like she was the only one who knew where to go. Unfortunately, before she could get there, she was swarmed by some masked ninja who decided they had gone far enough. Get out of my way! Hinata practically screamed as she began hitting the hell out of them. But she could only hit them one at a time and not fully effectively since had to stop each attack before changing target, so the enemy nin were able to get around her and hit back, and hard. Getsuga! Kiba yelled, doing his clan's spinning attack without his more injured companion to defend his teammate. Luckily the attack was designed to work when the user was outnumbered, so he didn't have to put in extra effort to make it have the intended effect. But it hurt him to use nonetheless. Now the group decided Hinata wasn't their only target, and took out Ninjutsu and Kunai to show they meant business. Fortunately, the younger nin weren't intimidated by opponents that carried weapons, it kind of came with the job. Human boulder, Choji said, getting in front of the rest and blimping up into a giant meatball, making him hard to hurt with most weapons. He rolled forward, and since they were in a hospital, the enemy ninja had only one direction to go. Unfortunately, Hinata was in his way as well. She had to run down the hall too since Choji was incapable of seeing where he was going or rolling over. Up ahead on the right side of the wall there were two doors, one belonging to a door and one belonging to an elevator. The masked ninja had pasted them both, hoping to take advantage of an Akamichi's weakness in handling sharp turns by going down some stairs. Hinata, however, closed to hide in the available room and just let him pass her. She got to it and went it, thankful it was an unlocked medical supply closet. She got in safely, but Choji broke off the door before she could close it. Hinata-sama, Neji asked once he came by the closet. I know what you're going to ask. We think someone's attacking Naruto-kun. She told him as she went back into the hall. Looking down at she saw Choji had to come to a stop. Why? Shikamaru asked. Does it matter? Hinata asked back, frowning at the shirker. Choji returned to normal size. Ahead of him was a wall that split the hall to either left or right but not forward, and he couldn't see the masked ninja anywhere. He did see some stairs going down, and concluded that's where they escaped to. Everyone, follow me. Right away the group tried to dart to him, except Hinata, who stopped them by getting in front of them. They're not the priority, getting to Naruto-kun's room is. Sakura nodded. Right. We need to get to the next floor up. Before they do. Not bothering with the elevator, which would have taken too long even in a ninja hospital, the group, Choji included, went to the stairs leading up to the floor Naruto was on. On this floor it was even more of a battlefield. Apparently the entire hospital from the 4th floor up was in a fight consisting of masked ninja, Anbu, and combat-trained medical ninja. Doors were closed and all the non-combat medical ninja were trying their best to keep the patients out of harm's way. None of the young ninja knew what to immediately do. They had not expected a battle of this magnitude. This was almost like a portion of the Odo-Suna invasion all over again. No time to speculate, Hinata went for Naruto's room down the hall, not caring in the least about joining the fight until she knew what his current state of being was. Once she moved, the others followed. Stop right there. One of the masked nin ordered, but was completely ignored. Occupied with a fight against an Anbu, all they could do was throw some kunai, which all missed and hit the wall instead. This didn't even faze the rookies, who continued following Hinata. Outside Naruto's room the hospital seemed to have taken the worst damage, implying that this is where the fight started and it escalated to encompass a lot more of it. There were burn marks and holes in the wall and even some slashes on the plaster as well. On the floor there were 2 down bodies, clearly dead since they were unmoving and on fire, with one man by the door with red-orange hair none of them recognized. Who are you? Hinata asked in a threatening tone that could become more than just a threat depending on his answer. Someone who's on your side, kid. My name's Ray, memorize it. Why should I believe you? She hissed. If you're a good ninja, you shouldn't. Ray replied. Where's Naruto then, if you're on our side? Sakura asked. Ray pointed behind himself with his thumb. He's right in there, he said as he turned around to see Naruto for himself before he paused mid-sentence. To the Genin's surprise, Ray's hands were suddenly enveloped by small fiery tornadoes. Since they couldn't see, Hinata and Neji activated their Byakugans and saw what he saw. Someone in a mask came in through the window. Naruto was already out of his bed, but it looked like the wires on him had only recently been disconnected, and judging by his chakra network, he wasn't at his normal health standards just quite. Close, but maybe about 90% there. But regardless, he was clearly ready to fight. Without a word, both young Hyuga rushed into the room, almost pushing past Ray to do so. Hinata, Neji, what are you guys still doing here? Naruto told them. The hospital is a war zone, Naruto, Did you expect us to leave in the middle of this fight and leave you alone? Neji asked. No, and I'm glad you didn't. I was just surprised that you guys were still here, that's all. The blonde replied. The masked nin had to pause for a moment. He looked like he was armed with some kind of fuinjutsu since he held a scroll in his hand but nothing else. He opened it quickly and placed it on the floor, a seal drawn across the paper. Despite how fast he might have been, Ray was faster and already armed with an attack, and blasted the masked nin with 2 flaming flurries. The attack must have been designed to burn rather than overpower, for it didn't push the masked nin back or show any signs that it had force behind it. Rather, it set the uniform and scroll ablaze, and unless they acted quickly, the person inside would burn with them. The threat no longer imposing, Hinata immediately went to Naruto and couldn't resist hugging him to confirm he was safe. Naruto-kun, are you okay? I'm fine, still in a lot of pain though. He said. It feels like something is preventing my injuries from completely healing, but I don't know what it might be. Her Byakugan still active, Hinata looked but couldn't see the problem. Naruto-kun, I wish I knew what was wrong, but I can't see anything I recognize as a problem. For now, I would try to avoid pushing yourself if you can help it. But there's a fight going on. He objected. She nodded. That's why we're here. Since you can't fight right now, we'll fight for you. You help us all the time, so please let us return the favor. At this point, Ray entered the conversation. For now, stay here and fend off any newcomers. Ray ordered. I'm going to go check on where that guy came from. Before any of the young Konoha nins could say anything, Ray went out the window and was headed up to the roof of the hospital. On the wall, he could see a body sent flying off the roof and fall down to the street below, with a brief glow to one part of it and blood around the same area. Kikyo's already up there. I better not show up unannounced or else I'll be the one with an arrow in my gut. Getting close to the top, but still over the edge, Ray saw some other masked nin trying to surround someone, and got an idea. I gotta time this right. Once he felt a familiar chakra surge, he jumped and immediately moved to behind one of the enemies. This was a good idea, since almost right away the enemy became his human shield, taking roughly 20 chakra arrows for him, then fell over. I'm glad Kikyo values accuracy over raw power, or else those would have skewered me too. He thought, then made his fire chakrams, hoping Kikyo wasn't shooting her targets before determining who they were first. In the heat of battle, Uzumaki did sometimes have an attack first, ask questions later mentality. Kikyo shot another enemy, then turned to Ray, the familiar sight of his fire jutsu staying her hand, but she kept her bow ready. I come in peace, he said, just to ensure she didn't shoot him. She then fired an arrow that passed his head but pierced the skull of the masked nin behind him. I'd prefer it if you came to fight, she stated. Ray nodded, then spun in place for a moment, then suddenly his fire chakrams were released. Once freed, the rings of fire spun around him like a horizontal vortex, the circumference expanding quickly with him as the epicenter. The chakrams themselves were mowing down all the enemies that were left on the rooftop and didn't flee, while Ray cancelled the jutsu before Kikyo was at risk from it. Where is Naruto? Kikyo asked now that she had a chance. Right where we left him. But we should get him somewhere secure. You know the layout of Konoha the best of us all, where do you recommend? Kikyo asked. I had hoped we could go to the old Uzumaki embassy, but it's been torn down and repurposed as a shopping center expansion in our public absence. Plus, whoever's behind this attack would expect us to go there anyway. We can't go to the Suna embassy without causing a lot of legal backlash, but I do know a place virtually barren that no one can complain about us being there in. Then just say it, Kikyo insisted, not wanting a discussion. Better yet, I'll take Naruto and his friends there, then come get you and the others. Ray said before jumping back over the ledge of the building. Good, Kikyo said, then readied her bow again for any new threats, as she shot a couple of masked men. Part of Ray's sentence suddenly registered in her mind. Wait, his friends too. Hospital, Naruto's room. Meanwhile, while Rei had been out, another masked ninja took the opportunity to sneak in. When they did, all of Naruto's friends were there in the room, keeping him from going right to his target. The ones closest to Naruto were Hinata and Shikamaru. What do you want with Naruto? Sakura asked, holding a taijutsu stance as best she could, knowing if push came to shove she'd be outmatched, but she was never one to go down without a fight. What I want is none of your concern, little girl. Now there are two ways this can end. The masked ninja said, his voice monotone but stern, like he was either giving an order or paraphrasing an objective. You either hand me the Jinchuriki, or die before he does. I have no problem killing all of you, so if you want to live, give up the boy now. What did you just call Naruto-kun? Hinata asked, familiar with the terminology this man had used, even though the others weren't. If he goes into detail here, there's no telling how they will react. Oh great, I shouldn't have called attention to it and given him a reason to go into detail. Smart thinking, Hinata. She berated herself. Thankfully the masked nin seemed to have no interest in answering her, much to her relief. At that moment, however, Naruto suddenly grimaced and hissed in pain, clutching his side like something inside him was being hurt. A little bit of blood starting dripping out of the corners of his mouth, and some sweat formed on his forehead. Sensing an opportunity, the masked nin rushed to Naruto, moving too quickly to be blocked by the other genin. In fact, those in front of him were hit hard and thrown to the side, but on pure reflex Hinata, the one closest to Naruto, threw out her hand with a Juken strike and the masked nin ran right into it. The Juken strike hit his torso and stunned him, and if it weren't for the chakra reinforcing the hand, Hinata might have broken a few bones from the impact. Unfortunately, her attack didn't really stop him. Instead, the enemy lashed out and backhand slapped her in the face, trying to knock her down. She fell, but she countered with an uppercut kick to his jaw as she fell. The enemy was momentarily dazed, but otherwise in no way unable to continue his objective. You'll never get what you want from me, Naruto said angrily yet quiet, struggling to ignore his internal agony, which was beginning to pass. I don't want anything, I have no wants or needs. I am merely the one ensuring the wants and needs of my superior are fulfilled. The masked nin said, taking out chakra suppressors. There was a glow behind him, and before Naruto knew it, this masked man jerked as if hit, then his body just split in half, cut diagonally from the right shoulder to the left hip, with the wounds looking burned. What the heck? Man, leave for 1 minute and look what happens. Rei says, standing by the window. His right index finger was pointed up but twirling with a small disc of fire only a tiny bit bigger than a shuriken rotating above it. I think it's time we get you somewhere less violent, kid. Rather than respond to Rei, Naruto knelt down to check on Hinata, who was already sitting up, as were the others knocked down. Hinata-chan, are you alright? I'll be fine, I've been hit with worse, she said, rubbing her sore hand, then saw the dead body. Who did that? That would be yours truly, girl, Rei said with a smile. With something I'm sure you'd appreciate, the Hinata Jutsu. Hinata Jutsu, the entire room repeated. Yeah, but it's written as, fire knife, instead of, place in the sun. Here, watch it. He twirled his finger faster and the fire disc got brighter, then pointed forward and stopped moving his finger. The fire disc immediately morphed into a gigantic whip of flames that sliced through the wall of the hospital like a large sword. It even left the same kind of damage, like a sword made of fire had cut through the wall. Neat, Naruto said. At the same time the fire weapon retracted back into a disc and Rei twirled his finger, as if the motion helped suppress it. At that moment the hospital was filled with the sound of a loud scream. Did anyone else hear a scream? Sakura asked. Rei shrugged. Maybe there was someone else trying to sneak in from outside. It's not our problem. Naruto, since these guys are after you, we need to take you somewhere they can't find you. That way your wounds can finish healing and we can draw out the ringleader. Let's get going. Naruto frowned. I'm not going anywhere with a complete stranger. Then take your friends along. I don't mind. Naruto's eyes narrowed. Something about this man was telling him to trust him, but after everything that had happened he wasn't sure if he should. How do I even know I can trust you? Ray sighed. You don't. But, like it or not, it's either that or wait for one of those guys to come in and try to kill you here. At least with this, we can get you somewhere safer and draw out the guy responsible for all of this. All of the rookies looked at each other, silently asking themselves if this was a good idea. None of them had a clear answer, not even Shikamaru. Time's not something we have a luxury of wasting, kids. Ray pointed out. I'm not going anywhere with you, end of story. Naruto said. You and the others say I'm part of your clan, and yet you weren't there for me when I was growing up. And now you expect me to trust his clan, Hinata repeated, not liking the sound of that one bit. The look she gave the fire-using Uzumaki was one no one had ever seen Hinata give. It was one that could be best described as, you're dead to me. The other genin reacted a bit differently, however, as they were surprised by what they just heard as Ray tried to talk his way out of this. Naruto, we told you why that was the case. I never agreed to it, and I'm really sorry that I didn't come to see you sooner, but what's done is done. We'll make it up to you somehow, but I can't do that if you die here. Ray said. At this point Sakura placed her hand on Naruto's shoulder. This man has a point, Naruto. It's too dangerous for you to be here in your condition. I think it would be best if we left. Besides, this guy doesn't seem like he's going to betray you. And even if he is, it's not like we can't put up a hell of a fight altogether. Kiba added. So what's your decision? Sakura turned to the redhead to speak to him. We'll believe that you're not a threat, and anywhere you take Naruto is better than here, seeing as how you saved his and Hinata's life. She then showed her fist while giving him a determined look. But that doesn't mean that we trust you completely, so don't expect us to lower our guards until we know for sure that you're trying to help him. No problem. Now hurry and follow me. Ray replied. Hold on. Naruto proclaimed. I didn't say I'd go anywhere. I still don't trust you to not try something. He can't take all of us with him too, Naruto. Shikamaru said. If his goal was any more sinister, he wouldn't want us to follow. Hinata patted Naruto's arm a bit to get his attention. Naruto-kun, I think he really just wants to get you to safety right now. Let's at least follow him for now. If he tries anything, then we'll fight for you. But you guys could get hurt. He pointed out. Come on, man, have some faith in us. Kiba said. You're not the only one who can take a hit. Before this conversation could continue, however, another masked ninja appeared and unsheathed their blade as they tried to attack the group as their backs were turned, but was stopped when a hand infused with lightning pierced their chest. That's far enough. A voice said from behind the masked nin before the traitor's lifeless body dropped to the ground, revealing the presence of one Hatake Kakashi as he deactivated the jutsu he just used. Kakashi-sensei. Sakura exclaimed, to which Kakashi responded by waving her off. The copy ninja then turned to face Naruto and Ray. Sorry I'm late, Naruto. I was planning to visit you earlier today, but I was busy tailing a group of these ninja to see what they were up to. If I'd known that they were attacking this place, I would have come much sooner. Before anyone could respond to Kakashi's explanation, everyone noticed that things had suddenly quieted down. Ray looked outside and saw that the remaining masked nins retreating. The Uzumaki then turned to Kakashi. What's going on? No idea, but I'm afraid we don't have time to think about that for now. I got an order from the Hokage to take you guys to the main lobby of the hospital via my wireless radio just a few moments after I saw this guy heading for this room. We've just captured one of these attackers and are about to interrogate him. Kakashi explained as he motioned for the group to head to the door. At hearing this, Ray, realizing that finding out what was going on might prove helpful in the long run, decided to go there first before getting Naruto to a more secure place. Ray merely nodded in response before motioning Kakashi to lead the way. As Kakashi walked out of the door leading into the hallway, Ray made a few shadow clones to act as scouts. He didn't make many since he needed to save up his chakra, but he did make enough to give them a heads up if trouble was nearby. They went out, and Ray followed. With Hinata and even Sakura's help, Naruto followed suit, having a hard time keeping up his speed. Everyone else followed as they wondered what had just happened. Hospital lobby, Konoha. A few minutes later, the fight had already ended, with medic nins moving the injured and the dead. None of the masked ninja were in sight at this point as they had either retreated or had all been slaughtered. The building itself was not unscathed. Signs of Tsunade's super strength was seen here and there with rubble and broken walls. The lobby itself was the least damaged area of the hospital but, at that moment, was the most crowded. Standing attentively, as if waiting for them, were the other three Uzumaki, Jiraiya, Tsunade, Shizune, Shino, Ino, Tenten, Kurenai, Asuma, Guy, Lee, Ibiki, some Anbu, and even the Sand siblings, much to the surprise of Naruto and his friends. Gaara, Naruto said when he saw his fellow Jinchuriki. I didn't expect to see you here. It's good to see you, man. Good to see you as well, Naruto, though it would seem that the situation looks pretty here. I guess so. Anyways, what brings you here? I thought you headed back home by now. Naruto asked. But we were asked to come back. Ray nodded. We felt it might be good to have someone outside the village who knew you testify if they thought this village was a good place for you. Plus they were tasked to bring a message to Konoha anyways, so they had to come here anyways. And we're glad we came when we did. When we heard that there was an attempt on your life fight we were very concerned. Tamari added. Gaara got really pissed when he heard that these guys were after you. While Naruto, the other Leaf Genin, and the Sand siblings were talking amongst themselves, Tsunade, Ibiki, and Kikyo went to their captive and took off their mask. They didn't recognize the ninja, a young male in his late teens, as he showed no signs or traits of belonging to a clan or organization. Though just to be safe Tsunade made sure he was missing both of his arms now and had his legs broken. Start talking, you damn traitor. Tsunade started angrily. Who are you working for? Who sent you to attack Naruto? I will tell you nothing. It was my master's will that, for the good of the village, the boy be either captured or killed. That is all I will say. The shinobi droned, no emotion in his tone. Kikyo readied her bow and pointed it down at his waist. Is that so? Okay, then. Which one do you prefer? Left or right? Left or right what? The captive asked. Kikyo answered his question when she released the arrow and it impaled one of his two fun parts, making him yell in pain rather loudly. Then she formed another arrow and then slightly shifted her bow's position. I'm in no mood for your silence. Now start squealing. You can try all you want, but even if I wanted to I cannot tell you a thing. The captive replied, and even though he didn't sound afraid, there was some sweat starting to drop. You can't talk. Jiraiya repeated, like something there stood out to him. Open your mouth, he commanded. As if to refuse, the captive shook his head, tightening his lips. All right then, Jiraiya said before he grabbed the teen's cheeks, then forcing the mouth open, looking in. You better have a good reason for this, Jiraiya. Tsunade warned. Jiraiya looked closely and found what he was looking for. Then, using one hand to keep the teen's mouth open, Jiraiya reached into the teen's mouth and brought his tongue out for all to see. See for yourself. Kikyo narrowed her eyes when she saw what Jiraiya was showing them. A fuinjutsu on his tongue, clearly the work of someone who doesn't want his subordinates to speak against him. And unfortunately, it likely has a failsafe to ensure removing it kills him, to guarantee any information dies with him. Most likely, but suppressing it should be safe. Jiraiya suggested, readying such a seal. The captive tried to resist, so applying it was difficult, but this wasn't Jiraiya's first time putting a seal on the unwilling, so it wasn't much of a challenge. Once the seal was applied, Jiraiya pulled away and glared down at the teen. Now start talking. The teen showed no expression. I refuse. I will not betray my master. Boy, the other one is next. So unless you wish to lose more of your pride, you had better cooperate, Kikyo asked, readying another arrow. The teen seemed to pale ever so slightly at that, but retained his stoic look. If I may, I think I know how to get this handled in a less violent way. Kakashi offered, kneeling down to the captive's eye level. And that would be? Ibiki asked, doubting even an ex-Anbu member could handle this better than him. The only reason he hadn't done much himself yet was because Tsunade wanted to be sure they couldn't get the boy to talk first, then he could try his luck. But he would give the Junin a chance to prove himself. Kakashi pulled back his Hitai-8, revealing his Sharingan. The tomos began spinning rapidly, drawing the captive into a trance. You will tell us who ordered this. You will tell us what they want. Under the effects of the Dujutsu, combined with Jiraiya's suppression seal, there was nothing to prevent the captive from confessing. I obey the Hokage in theory only. I only follow Shimura Danzo-sama with complete obedience. His will is more than the law, it is far above the law. Kikyo's eyes narrowed. Shimura. I remember that name. Had to kill a few members of that clan in the past. Danzo hasn't been a ninja for a long time. Tsunade claimed. Nowadays he's mostly a political shark, likes to believe he's a big fish in a small pond. He once formed a separate department of Anbu called Root that were disbanded when Sarutobi-sensei had reason to believe Danzo was training them to be his personal lapdogs, but I guess the old Warhawk decided to go underground with his plans. Though the captive heard them, he couldn't reply, as Kakashi's genjutsu immediately forced him to answer the copy ninja's other question. Danzo-sama will not take the chance that the Jinchuriki might escape his grasp. He will not allow the Jinchuriki to even have the option of leaving Konoha. To ensure such an outcome, Uzumaki Naruto must remain here by force, and if the Hokage is willing to even consider letting the Jinchuriki leave, she must be removed from office by force. Ino came to Shikamaru. What does he keep calling Naruto? She whispered. I don't know. The lazy Chunin replied. Why would you obey a man? What makes you think he is above the Hokage? Kakashi added. He is the only one who has the right to be Hokage. Anyone else is just stealing what is rightfully his. I would never truly obey a pretender to the title of Hokage. The captive, clearly a member of the should-be-gone Root organization, declared. He's been made completely obedient to Danzo Hokage-sama. Ibiki said. I can tell from his tone and posture, he isn't just repeating what he's told even when he's under the control of the Sharingan. He honestly believes Danzo has to be Hokage, for the same reason fire has to be hot. That made Kakashi a bit uneasy, since it hinted at more sinister plans at play here. What will Danzo do if he can't get Naruto today? In the event of the failure of our mission, however it happens, Danzo-sama will have all ninja he's gathered rise up and revolt against the imposter Hokage before killing Uzumaki Naruto, but not before the Jinchuriki witnesses the deaths of those who support him, including, but not limited to, Hitaki Kakashi, Haruno Sakura, Hyuga Hinata, Inuzuka Kiba, Rock Lee, and even Uchiha Sasuke if it comes to it. And of course the Uzumaki envoy will be slain before Danzo-sama takes his rightful place as Konoha's only true Hokage. Everyone who heard this was either shocked or angry, and for some a mixture of both. Kakashi covered his Sharingan, both to avoid using the Mangekyo Sharingan, which he had yet to reveal to anyone, in anger and to conserve his chakra. Free from hypnosis, the Root agent realized what had just happened. Naturally he was less than pleased at this. You will regret what you made me say. Despite his training to have no emotions at all, he found himself feeling anger, and lacked the means to control it. With that he then turned to Tsunade. And you will regret falling for the tricks of the worthless demon brat and the puppets of his accursed demon mother. All of a sudden, Ray darted to the root and slugged him hard in the jaw. Hard enough to hear something crack. Ray, the other three Uzumaki said in surprise. Ray seemed to ignore them all. His fists were covered in fiery tornadoes, but the flames barely looked controlled. He grabbed the root nin and the flames spread all over his body, burning intensely and almost turned white in seconds. And then suddenly it stopped, the flames evaporated, leaving only steam and burns on the root nin. A close look showed that Ray's hands and sleeves were burned too, though not as much. Ray, stop, Kikyo ordered. The red-haired ninja ignored her still and clenched his burned fists, then proceeded to beat the living hell out of the armless captive. There was no taijutsu or form used, this was just a savage beating, plain and simple. The people in the room could only watch as if they can't believe it's happening. If this savage beating wasn't brutal enough, Ray then added in more flames. Ray, Mia and Jun yelled, pulling him away from his victim by hooking his arms with their own. He resisted, of course, and managed to use his legs to add in a stomp for good measure, but Jiraiya came in with a quickly made low-quality seal to stop his movements. It wouldn't last long, but enough to stop him for now. Gaara leaned closer to Naruto. This guy is rather vicious. Even I have to admit that was going a bit too far. Coming from Gaara, that's really saying something. Naruto thought but knew not to say. Some Anbu checked on the root nin. He's dead, one of them told Tsunade. There goes any chance to get more information. The blonde Senju said to herself. But what we got puts things in perspective. She added, glancing at Naruto and the other Uzumaki. That what happens when you scumbags insult Kushina or her son in front of me. Remember that, Ray said when the blind rage left him, but not before spitting on the dead ninja's corpse. Kikyo was less than happy. Ray, what did I tell you about overdoing it? Sorry Kikyo-sama, but can you blame me here? Note to self. Don't provoke that guy. Kakashi told himself. Kikyo looked to Tsunade. The soldiers of this man have pulled back, but it's clear they'll be back again. Naruto must be taken somewhere safe. Tsunade nodded. Yes, and I think I know a place where Danzo wouldn't think to look, while I have my soldiers search for him. Tsunade then ordered everyone out of the hospital as they proceeded to follow her. Before leaving, however, Ray pulled out a small bag filled with ryo before turning to the person standing in the lobby. Sorry about the mess, Ray said before tossing the bag at the medic nin who caught the bag. Ray then left, being the last to see the charred, bloodied, and now crumbling corpse of the man he killed. He didn't even feel a shred of remorse. Here we are, now we can talk as we need to. Kikyo said when everyone had gotten to where she and Tsunade wanted to go to get Naruto off the radar. Did we really have to come here? Jiraiya asked, not feeling comfortable where they currently were. This is one of the most private places in Konoha even without seals involved. The only way anyone would find us here is if we give ourselves away. Kikyo told him. There was indeed truth to her words. Their current location was not some hidden bunker or cellar or panic room of any kind. It was much simpler than that, simple enough to easily be overlooked by someone trying to find someone trying to hide. It was the Uchiha compound, a vastly deserted portion of Konoha that no one ever went to. The perfect place to hide because aside from Uchiha Sasuke no one was supposed to be there. Right now the group was in a completely random building that was picked solely because it was large enough to hold them all. The group consisted of the Rookie 12, their senseis, Tsunade, Jiraiya, and the Sand siblings. Naruto, however, was separate from the group, placed in an interior room that was once a bedroom, with no way to get outside and away from the others. This was so he would have a chance to think for himself in private. What needs to be talked about? Sakura asked. We need to discuss moving Naruto to Uzushio, Kikyo started. We never decided that, Tsunade pointed out, because we never got a chance to. Rei reminded her. Hinata stood up, looking infuriating. You're not taking Naruto-kun. Kikyo and the Uzumaki were incredibly unintimidated. Girl, he's not your property. Why do you want to take Naruto away? Ino asked. Mia rolled her eyes. If you people would stop interrupting us every single time we try explaining it, you might finally learn why. No one said anything, well aware that the Uzumaki woman was impatient and would have answered their questions happily had they bothered to stop asking them long enough to let them speak. Allow me to explain on my kin's behalf. Kikyo started. For those of you unaware, we are of the Uzumaki clan, and yes, Naruto is in fact a member of us. We live in the village Uzushiogakure, an old village that was strongly allied with Konoha in the past, but these days that alliance is strained to say the least. Naruto is the last of the branch of our clan that resided in Konoha, and Konoha. I think you can see for yourself how much your village values our clan. What do you mean? Choji asked. Tell us one thing you know about the Uzumaki clan. Jun asked back. Any tiny thing that you learned about the Uzumaki. Not surprisingly, none of the younger generation in the room could say a thing. They couldn't even use Naruto as an example since it was clear even he didn't know about the clan. In fact, this was the first time they even heard of the Uzumaki clan and, given the circumstances, that was something that was very suspicious. It's okay if you can't, we don't blame you for not knowing. Mia said. Naruto himself didn't know either. The governing body of Konoha has over the years tried to make our clan completely unknown, for reasons we can guess at but not prove. Why would they hide that information? Tenten asked. As Mia just explained, we don't know for sure and it's not worth speculating about right now. The only thing that matters right now is that Konoha, for whatever reason, hid the truth from Naruto and he has suffered for it. Naruto has gotten no knowledge of his clan up until now. No history to be proud of, no figures to be inspired by other than the Hokage, no training specifically tailored to his biological needs. Konoha has held him back. Kikyo said, then gave some harsh looks to Kakashi and Jiraiya. And his senseis have not done much to change that. What are you saw? Kakashi started. You know full well what I am saying. Kikyo cut off. If you wish to explain your actions then save it for when we're done talking. Until then keep your mouth shut. Kakashi stilled his tongue, taking the hint, and Jiraiya knew to do otherwise on his part wouldn't be any smarter. What makes it especially insulting is the fact that they denied this information to such an important member of our clan. Mia added. What do you mean an important member of your clan? What is Naruto-kun to you? Hinata asked. In a strictly biological sense, Naruto is the rightful heir to all of Uzushio. He is in the line of succession for the leadership of the whole village. Kikyo answered. Everyone in the room was shocked to hear this. Naruto, the boy who had always been considered the pariah of Konoha, was downright royalty in another village. No way. Naruto. I mean, him, Kiba said, having a hard time comprehending this. Yes, him. And before any of you say he can't possibly be an heir, let me point out that had a single one of you been taken away from your clans like he was, you wouldn't have been in model heir yourself either. Proper behavior is taught, not instinctive, and like we already mentioned, no one really bothered to teach Naruto anything. Rei shrugged. To be honest, though, proper behavior is an alien concept for our clan. We Uzumaki have a reputation for throwing formality and all that bull into the wind like used up tissue, so Naruto probably wouldn't have learned any of that back in Uzushio anyways. That said, the neglect Naruto went through here goes beyond that and is completely unacceptable. Anyways, I imagine you're wondering how exactly Naruto is essentially royalty. Kikyo continued, ignoring Rei's comment. It basically comes down to it being in his blood. Naruto's mother was Uzumaki Kushina, daughter of Uzumaki Ashina, the last ruler of Uzushio who sadly is no longer with us. I am the current head of the clan, but my position is only filler. Naruto at the moment is the last of the ruling branch of the Uzumaki clan. Ruling branch. You mean the Uzumaki are divided like the Hyuga? Neji asked, finding it troubling to believe Naruto was in a genetic sense in a clan that had something similar to the main house of the Hyuga. No, nothing like that. When we say branches, we mean that the clan is rather large and some of our clansmen are part of branches that specialize in some fields and professions. Beyond that, however, our clan isn't really divided, certainly not in the same way that clans like the Hyuga are, and we have close ties to the other branches. Naruto is a special case, however, as he is part of the branch that has always maintained order in the clan, essentially the leadership of the clan which, by extension, also makes him the leader of our village. The four of us are of the guardian branch. Our job is to protect the clan from threats both internal and external. Think of us like a military police force and a royal guard all in one. Jun answered. While all the branches are close to each other, however, we've always been especially close to the leadership branch. In fact, Naruto's mother has always been like a sister to me before she moved to Konoha, and we stayed close even after that point. Ray added. In fact, had I not been forced to focus on rebuilding Uzushio all this time, I would have been his godfather. Jiraiya mentally winced, certain beyond all doubt that was a jibe at him, as Shikamaru began to speak. If what you say about Naruto is true, then why would someone from such an important part of the clan be living away from it? Shikamaru asked. Years ago, his mother was brought to Konoha to fulfill a necessary role for the village, and remained here with his father. But both are dead now. Mia answered. What role was that, and why was she the one who had to fulfill that? Ino asked. At this point Jun spoke. We'll get to what her role was soon enough. As for why she was chosen, Uzumaki Kushina possessed a special type of chakra our clan possesses. While we all have this chakra, she was a very special case. Roughly 1 out of 100 ever have the fortune to be born with what she had, but at the time only she had it. A special type of chakra. You mean she had a Kekkei Genkai? Asuma asked. His memories of Kushina when she was an active ninja always implicated she had something like a Kekkei Genkai, but she had never really told anyone about it, claiming she didn't know much on it either. Not exactly. Kikyo answered. Let me elaborate a bit more. We of the Uzumaki clan have a special trait, for lack of a better term, called longevity, and while it's not our only special trait or ability, it is one of the two we are most known for. The members of our clan have a very strong life force and vitality due to the large amount of physical energy we possess compared to other ninja, which grants us accelerated healing abilities, great stamina, and even extended lifespans for those who don't get killed in battle. These things don't become apparent until after an Uzumaki finishes puberty, when our body's aging process slows to the point where we age at a fraction of the speed yours do, which combined with our extended lifespans is where the trait gets its name. Naturally, this also means we have very large amounts of chakra compared to those outside of our clan. At this point Ray took over the explanation. But even when compared to the rest of our clan, Kushina's power was off the charts. Her own longevity and chakra was much greater and stronger than other Uzumaki. She was certainly one of the strongest members of our clan at the time, if not the strongest. You can see that with Naruto, as he managed to inherit Kushina's longevity, and, in fact, his is even stronger than Kushina's on its own. No wonder Naruto always acts like he doesn't have an off switch, Tamari thought to herself, recalling her brief encounters with Naruto during the Chunin exams and his fight with Gaara just as Ray interjected. The chakra that Kushina possessed was required for a vital job in Konoha, so she moved here. At the time this was acceptable, as Kushina wasn't the only heir to the clan at the time. Yet due to accumulated tragedy over the passing years, they died out from enemies trying to wipe them out. No offense, but if that's the case, it sounds like you guys at your own jobs, then. Kiba mused. Kiba would come to regret saying that when all four Uzumaki glared at the Inuzuka, which, for some reason, scared the shit out of the young Inuzuka. Realizing that he was better off not throwing any more fuel into that fire, Kiba decided to keep his mouth shut. After calming down a bit, Kikyo decided to respond to Kiba's jab. I'm sure you've protected things in the past. Were you always successful? That not only struck a chord with Kiba, but with everyone in the room, with the exception of Gaara. Try as they might, each one of them at some point had failed to accomplish something that had mattered to them at the time. For some like Kakashi it was a grave matter, and for some like Shikamaru it was more a matter of, I should have done more somehow, but it was undeniable, failure was something everyone had to experience. Only Gaara was immune to this, as so far he had rarely ever tried to protect anyone, and the few times he had yet to fail. The closest he ever came to failure was when Naruto had defeated him, but he considered that a blessing more than a problem. We have all tried to keep the leadership of the clan alive, and sometimes we succeeded and sometimes we failed. Many times we died for them and many times we died with them. And don't forget the heirs themselves did not remain in utter safety while we fought for them, they're ninja too and fought with us. Sometimes however they forget who's supposed to be guarding who. It's so easy to see Naruto acting like that. Sakura thought. What exactly did his mother have to do here in Konoha? And while we're on the subject on his parents, who was his father? Gaara asked. Was he someone of the same branch? Not quite. Naruto's father wasn't even an Uzumaki. Jun answered. Then why is he called an Uzumaki? Temari asked. If you mean why he wasn't named after his father, then I would ask your Hokage here, she knows very well why. Kikyo said, giving Tsunade a pointed glare. I don't think this an important matter right now, nor is it the appropriate time to discuss this. Tsunade advised. And once again, you're trying to take the easy way out of this problem. Ray stated, shaking his head in frustration. Look, everything needs to be out in the open now, like it or not. So either you man up and say it, or we will. If you want to stop us, keep in mind we won't just stand here. Put on the spot, and knowing that, taking the easy way out, would undermine her position as Hokage at the moment, Tsunade chose to finally reveal the truth. Fine then. The role of Naruto's mother and the identity of his father are closely connected, so I'll explain them both together. And to truly understand it, I have to start from back to when Konoha's beginnings so you can really know how Naruto ties into it. She cleared her throat, as if to momentarily delay the next part. Most people think that Konoha was initially founded by just the Senju and Uchiha clans, with most of the other clans arriving shortly thereafter, but that's not exactly the case. The Uzumaki, who were blood related to the Senju and were close allies to them, were also heavily involved in the founding of Konoha. Most of the Uzumaki would go on to form their own village, Uzushio, mostly because of the tensions between the Senju and Uchiha and, more importantly, their own rivalry with the Uchiha, which was actually even more intense than the one the Uchihas had with the Senju. Due to their ties with the Senju, however, a compromise was made to allow some of the Uzumaki to remain here to ensure relations between the Senju and Uchiha in the village didn't fall apart. Ultimately, the leader of the Uchiha at the time, Uchiha Madara, gave in to his paranoia about the Senju and Uzumaki trying to oppress him and sought to ensure he put them down before they could put him down. This led to the famous fight between him and the Shodai Hokage Senju Hashirama at the infamous Valley of the End. What you don't know is that they both had a little help. Madara had the Kyuubi and Hashirama Ojiazan had my grandmother, Uzumaki Mito. That sure surprised everyone. No one knew that Tsunade was part Uzumaki, except for the Uzumaki themselves. Madara was defeated, but he didn't just lose the battle, he lost the Kyuubi too. My grandfather had him restrained, but he couldn't do it for long. With my grandmother there was a solution. They sealed away the Kyuubi, very much like how you would seal a kunai into a scroll. Only instead of a scroll, they sealed it into Mito Obasan herself. Wait, you can seal a living thing away? Or something inside a living thing? Tenten asked. confused since in all her time working with seals she never once had been told living things could be used on either side of the sealing process, let alone both sides. You'll be surprised by what you can seal away, girl. While there are limits depending on the seal being used, the person using the seal, and the person or thing being sealed away, in the end there is nothing that you can't seal away with proper fuinjutsu. In fact, our skill with fuinjutsu was the other ability the Uzumaki clan are well known for. Jun told her before Tsunade continued her story. Mito Obasan kept Kyuubi contained for a very long time, but eventually even an Uzumaki gets old and she needed someone to take her place as container of the Kyuubi. At the time there was only one other person available who was a viable option, Uzumaki Kushina, who was a young girl and brought to Konoha from Uzushio. The young genin and Shikamaru were understandably shocked by this. Why her? Gaara asked, the Suna Nin being especially troubled by the revelation despite having already figured Naruto's connection to this, having learned about Naruto's own burden a while back. Because she had the same type of chakra as Mito Obasan, and as such she was the only one who would contain it with minimal risk of failure. Tsunade answered. Kushina came here, and the Kyuubi was transferred from my grandmother into her in complete secrecy. No one knew about it or told anyone. At that, Hinata frowned and Sakura looked bothered. Yet clearly such a thing wasn't done for Naruto-kun. The condition for Kushina coming here was that she obviously couldn't go back to Uzushio or claim her place within the clan, but nowhere did it say her kids couldn't. Ray pointed out. Okay, but where does Naruto's father fall into all of this? And, more importantly, what does this have to do with Naruto in the first place? Neji asked. At this point Ray stepped in to explain. We were just about to get to that part. Naruto's father, Kushina's husband, was also the one who was primarily responsible for keeping the seal keeping the Kyuubi inside Kushina. You may not have been aware of it but you've actually seen his face up on that giant stone monument Konoha's so proud of. You know him as Minato Namikaze, the Yondaime Hokage. At that moment the younger ninja, including Sakura and Hinata, were left in complete shock by this, not even knowing what to say. Not only was Naruto a clan heir but, to top it all off, he was the son of the Yondaime Hokage, the greatest hero of Konoha who gave his life to stop the Kyuubi. Those who weren't trying to wrap their minds around this idea suddenly realized that, given how Naruto was treated in Konoha, the Uzumaki had a good reason to want him back. Even as the younger shinobi tried to register that last bit of information, however, Ray continued with his revelation. As for Naruto's role in all of this, it began on the day he was born though he didn't learn about his role, or even about his heritage, until very recently. When Kushina gave birth to Naruto, the seal on her weakened as the strength of the seal had waned due to the need for Kushina to divert her strength to him during her pregnancy. Minato and Konoha did prepare for this beforehand but something went horribly wrong and the Kyuubi broke free as a result. Ultimately Kushina and Minato had no choice but to seal the Kyuubi away, at the cost of their own lives, inside of their own son. He explained. If the revelation of Naruto's relation to the Yondaime was a shock then this revelation was a paradigm shifter for the young teens. At that moment there was a pause to let this sink in for the group, particularly those unaware of this fact. Even Hinata and Sakura were speechless, though, only because of the fact that Naruto's own parents were the ones to force the burden of the Kyuubi into their own son. As the young genin and Shikamaru tried to digest all that they had just learned, some of them looked over to the room Naruto was in, wondering what he was thinking about at that moment. At the moment, Naruto was leaning against the door, listening in on the conversation as best he could, certain the Uzumaki might say something that he needed to hear but they didn't want him to. While normally trusting despite his ninja training, Naruto couldn't bring himself to trust these people, not in spite of their claiming to be his family, but because they claimed to be his family. Despite their reasoning, and the revelations that proved that Kakashi, Jiraiya, Tsunade, and even the third Hokage, among others, had lied to him for all of his young life, Naruto could not bring himself to trust people who weren't around for his entire life. Even though they had lied to him, and were not around as much as they should have been, in the case of Kakashi and Jiraiya, those four people were at least there for him, even if it wasn't by much, while the same could not be said for the Uzumaki. Also, no matter what the arguments they used against Tsunade and the higher-ups, the Uzumaki didn't have anything they could use to make Naruto doubt his friends, and both he and the Uzumaki, if that's who they really were, knew it. His friends genuinely care for him, to the point that they had risked life and limb to protect him when the masked nin attacked. It was that very devotion, however, that really made Naruto question what he should do ever since the interrogation of the root nin at the hospital. Like a nightmare that someone is unable to wake up from, the young genin was unable to get the man's last words from that interrogation out of his head. In the event of the failure of our mission, however it happens, Danzo-sama will have all ninja he's gathered rise up and revolt against the imposter Hokage before killing Uzumaki Naruto, but not before the Jinchuriki witnesses the deaths of those who support him, including, but not limited to, Hitaki Kakashi, Haruno Sakura, Hyuga Hinata, Inuzuka Kiba, Rock Lee, and even Uchiha Sasuke if it comes to it. Those words, more than any of the arguments that either Uzumaki have made or the things he had learned today, were what was putting Naruto at a crossroads in his life. Naruto was his own person, with his own hopes and dreams, and he never once doubted himself. For Naruto, however, the thing he valued the most were the lives of those he cares about. While he felt his life had some value, the lives of those he cared for, in his mind, were of greater value to him, to the point that if he was forced to choose between giving his life to save a friend or let them die, he would choose the first option every time without hesitation, regardless of any regrets he would have of not achieving his dreams. This situation was different, however. Not only was Naruto himself the reason for this threat to his friends, but there was not much he could do. His friends would try to protect him, and, due to his current condition, he wasn't going to be able to protect them. There was a very real chance his friends might die as a result of this battle. His only other option was to actually go with the Uzumaki, whom he didn't trust, which would take him out of the equation and, Naruto hoped, would end the battle before it began. If he were to leave, however, Naruto knew very well that he would never be able to return to Konoha. He could never see his friends ever again, and his dream of becoming Hokage would be lost. Needless to say, Naruto would rather be interrogated by Ibiki and Anko than leave his friends behind. To put it shortly, Naruto, for the first time in his life, was unsure of what he should do, and, given the situation, he couldn't turn to the people he normally would for guidance. I need someone to talk to, he quietly said to himself. In the back of his mind, he felt a tug, and before he knew what was going on, the world around him went dark, and he saw himself in front of a giant set of bars. Here again, I really need to figure out how I get there, the whiskered blonde said to himself. As expected, a set of eyes appeared behind the bars, but this time Naruto could begin to see more than just the eyes and mouth. Maybe the lighting was just better now for some reason, or the Kyuubi wasn't trying to conceal itself this time, but this time Naruto could actually see the Biju trapped within him. Did you bring me here? Naruto asked. Kyuubi didn't show any emotion other than boredom. Does it matter? Didn't you say you needed someone to talk to? Someone, not something. Why would I want to talk to you? Because I'm the only being on this planet that you know for a fact would think about what's best for you. The Kyuubi pointed. Naruto was about to refute that, but the fox did have a point. While any and all of Kyuubi's help had been in the fox's own interests if it could help it, it was an undeniable fact that Kyuubi did not benefit from things getting worse in Naruto's life. Kyuubi did not like Naruto, and the feeling was mutual, but Kyuubi had made it clear that what affected one of them would affect the other, so no matter what, Kyuubi could not give Naruto bad advice without suffering any consequences with him. I hate to admit it, but you're right. So, did you have something you wanted to say to me? Naruto asked. Kyuubi moved its paws under its mouth to get more comfortable. When it comes to what village you live in, boy, personally I don't care. As long as you live, where you live means nothing to me. But I suppose if I had to choose, I'd pick the other one over this one. Naruto arched an eyebrow. Why? For starters, they have no intention of killing you, and they aren't going to look for a replacement to hold me right away. I get the feeling that as soon as Konoha has a means to replace you as my jailer, your life is all but forfeit, but with Uzushio they have no hurry on that. But ultimately, I just don't like Konoha. I don't have a reason to hate the other village, but this one I do. Naruto now frowned. So you want me to leave my friends? They're not my friends, so why would I care? The fox asked back. I won't ever leave them. But on the other hand, if I stay, I'll be putting them in danger. Naruto said, mostly to himself. Boy, they're already in danger just by being ninja. They're just as likely to die on one of those missions you take as they are now. You can't protect them forever. Naruto frowned and clenched his fist. I can try. To what end? What do you get out of it? Kyuubi challenged. It's not about what I get out of it. It never was. Naruto roared. Kyuubi rolled his eyes. That's a lie and we both know it. You expect me to believe you honestly don't want anything from them in return. You're perfectly happy being ignored and taken for granted. Fine, if you want to know why it never mattered, it's because they already gave me what I wanted. Friends who see me as Uzumaki Naruto, not you. That's all I ever wanted from them. That's why they're my friends, and that's why it was never was about what I wanted from them, and that's why I want to protect them, just as they were willing to protect me. If you can't understand that much, then I have nothing more to say. You got it? And is that keeping you alive? You have needs besides attention, boy. Kyuubi objected. When has that ever stopped me, you damned flea-bitten furball? Kyuubi growled in annoyance. I know you're afraid of being alone, but this situation is bigger than that. You can't think about just one thing here. Have you even thought about how your friends feel about all of this? Confused, Naruto gave a snide smirk. Wow, Kyuubi, you're actually asking me that. And all this time I thought you had no heart. He taunted. It's not that I don't, it's that you have too much. You say that like it's a bad thing. Too much of anything is a bad thing. Even good things can be bad if they're excessive. Kyuubi told him. You have too much heart, you're completely dominated by your emotions, to the point you base all major decisions on feelings rather than facts or long-term consequences. Not just your feelings, but the feelings of others around you, which make you want to protect everyone and sacrifice your happiness even if that means taking unnecessary risks. Again, Fox, when has this ever stopped me? Naruto repeated. It doesn't, because you don't let it. This is not a matter that should be handled by someone who only acts on his emotions at the present moment. You have to consider facts, consequences, instinct, benefits and costs, not just whether or not someone will get hurt if you decide something. That's what a smart person does, because, believe me when I say, this world doesn't tolerate fools. Kyuubi growled. To the Biju's confusion, Naruto merely smirked in response. Is that so? Alright, then, if that's what it means to be smart, then I guess I'll remain a fool my entire life. That's just the kind of guy the first am, and that's all there is to it. Besides, it's my decision to make, Fleabag, and I'm making it my way, Naruto insisted. While taken aback by Naruto's declaration, Kyuubi seemed to shrug it off. Fine, but can I at least offer an insight into the situation before you do decide? Naruto thought it over and, while didn't see it as unreasonable and he decided to allow it, the Konoha nin was less than amused, made evident by the heavy sigh he let out before speaking. Fine, but I'm still doing things my way. You know, sometimes I wish you were more like one of my friends, since that would make it easier too. At that moment, Naruto froze, like something had just hit him. Then he got a wide smile on his face and hit his hand with his fist. I got it. Huh. Kyuubi was understandably confused by this turn of behavior. What are you up to, boy? I have an idea. I guess this talk helped after. Thanks, you mutated fleabag, Naruto said, then all of a sudden just disappeared from view. Huh, I didn't say anything, the large fox thought to himself. When he realized that he had been left alone, Kyuubi ed in frustration. That brat, left before I even got to say anything. And why do I have a feeling that he's is going to almost screw things over for the both of us, again? Back with the main group, the discussion continued, unaware of what Naruto had been doing. In case anyone thinks we just want Kyuubi for ourselves, you're dead wrong. Kikyo told the others. All we want is Naruto, we couldn't care less about the Biju he holds. From a militaristic point of view, that's impossible. Tsunade pointed out. After the younger ninja managed to snap out of their shock that resulted from learning about Naruto's heritage and his little burden, the group turned to look at Tsunade for confirmation of the Uzumaki's claims, which Tsunade gave them. For some reason, this then led to a few of the younger ninja becoming concerned that the Uzumaki merely wanted Naruto for the Kyuubi, as if they thought he were some weapon to be wielded, which led to the current point of the conversation. We aren't speaking in terms of military benefits, we are speaking in terms of what's best for Naruto. And how is him going with you? What's best for him? Kiba asked. Uzushio is inhabited primarily by Uzumaki, and we have everything the clans here in Konoha have. In short, we have everything Konoha has denied Naruto, most important of these being a family that will take care of him. Of course, there are other benefits as well, including specialized training regimens and other benefits that can help bring out more of a shinobi's true potential that are only given to clans. For most of us, however, we simply want Naruto to come back so he gets what he should have gotten here. That said, we can only give these things to Naruto if he comes with us to Uzushio, to his rightful home, which is a decision that he has to make on his own. But as you would expect from a member of our clan, Naruto is not so easily swayed. Ray added in. Unlike some people, it's naturally not enough to offer to make him stronger, we need to show him the reason for us helping him is one he approves of. The problem is he doesn't want to hear us out, and, to be fair, I really don't blame him. We were absent for years, so it's perfectly normal he's not so keen on jumping at the chance to be a part of us, especially when this village is the only life he's ever known, for better or worse. Why were you absent? How long have you known of him? Hinata asked, still not happy with the Uzumaki's blatant admission of wanting to take Naruto away. About 30 years ago, a coalition of nations tried to destroy our clan and our village as well. To survive, we had to make it appear as though they had succeeded. When that whole episode came and went, we had to focus on rebuilding our village and find everyone that somehow went missing after the attack, so we were content with letting the Uzumaki that were in Konoha at the time, Kushina included, stay in Konoha. As for Naruto, we've known about him ever since we confronted the Sandaime about him 7 years ago. He insisted that Konoha would help Naruto, and we decided to give your village a chance to prove it. But once the Godime was put into office, we decided to see what exactly they had done for Naruto, and frankly were not satisfied. Jun answered. When the Yondaime died, he had one wish for Naruto, for him to be seen and treated as a hero. Tell me, before he became a ninja, if someone asked you to think of Naruto as a hero, who here wouldn't have laughed at the idea? Ray asked. With the exception of Hinata, all the genin and Shikamaru lowered their heads in shame. Most of them had already laughed at him for far less, and those that hadn't laughed knew deep down they wouldn't have agreed he was a hero. Even Lee, who thought the best of everyone who wasn't his enemy, would at best say Naruto had a lot of determination but much work to do to get where he wanted to go. Which right now only sounded like a nice way to say, he's weak, to the green-clad taijutsu user. I always thought of him as a role model. Hinata admitted. Not the way the Yondaime intended, but that only means my perspective is the most genuine. I didn't see him as good simply because I was told to, nor was told why to. I did for my own reasons, even when surrounded by people who tried to give me reasons not to like him. I don't think there's a single person in this village who has a more honest opinion of Naruto-kun, for good or bad, than myself. She's right, Sakura said. Most of us, myself included, gave into peer pressure regarding how to see him. She's the only one whose opinion is truly her own. She turned to her sensei. Kakashi-sensei, were you against Naruto too? No, Sakura, I wasn't. I'd be happy to say what I thought of him, if someone would actually let me. He told her, giving the Uzumaki a brief pointed glance. I suppose now would be the appropriate time. Kikyo said. Kakashi cleared his throat, knowing this was going to be tough to say as people were going to look for holes in his story. I know what you think about me, that I don't care about Naruto and blame him for my sensei's death, that I was put in charge of Team 7 to train Sasuke but not Naruto, and that I never intended to use Naruto as anything other than a way to make Sasuke look better by comparison. Close, Kakashi, we did say all of that about you, except the part about Minato's death. We never said you blame him for your sensei's death. Kikyo corrected. Since you brought that up, do you hold Naruto responsible? The Cycloptic Junin did not expect that, and his lack of an immediate answer was cause for alarm for everyone else. But, the shock of this blindsiding question wore off as quickly as it came and was replaced by something else as the now very insulted copy ninja glared at the Uzumaki representative as if to silently say, "Ask me that again, I dare you." Sakura cringed to see such a look in her sensei's one good eye, and the Junin were amazed Kakashi would look so infuriated. It was quite different than his usual expression of aloofness. To Kikyo's credit, however, she was completely unaffected. If you want to glare at someone, it helps if more than one eye is actually visible on your face. Otherwise, it just makes you look ridiculous. The expert archer told him. Now, continue your story while we're still willing to allow it. Pompous bitch, Kakashi thought to himself before continuing. To make it perfectly clear to you, I do not hate Naruto and I do not blame him for my sensei's death. As much as I wish he was still alive, I at least respect how he went and I know that what he did, more than anything, had to be for Naruto's sake, even if I don't know how that was the case. He explained. You say that and yet you avoided him until you were forced to take charge of his squad. Why is that? Ray asked. To the surprise of everyone who knew Kakashi, the normally aloof Junins had a very saddened, almost guilty, look in his eye. When she saw it, Sakura was reminded of a similar look Kakashi had when he explained the purpose of the Heroes Memorial Stone on Team 7's first day. Kakashi then let out a heavy sigh before he answered Ray's question. He didn't like to talk about what he was about to tell everyone, but he decided he had no choice but to come clean about his failures. The reason why I was never around for him before I became the leader of Team 7 was simple, I just couldn't bring myself to do so. I wanted to be there for him, but I thought that would only be the death of him like it was for everyone else I was close to. My father, my teammates, and finally my sensei and his wife had all died one right another. I was apparently so mentally unstable for a time I was considered unfit to raise Naruto and, for a long time, I was too afraid even to try. I felt like a Shinigami, death came to whoever I was around. Hell, I was about to flat out refuse to become the leader of his squad until the Sandaime himself intervened, and even then I was afraid to get too close to Naruto, and the rest of my squad to a lesser extent. It was only after Naruto and Sasuke managed to save my life during our mission to the Land of Waves that I realized that maybe I made a mistake. That may not be nearly enough to excuse my mistake, but at least I'm now trying to make up for it, that's all I can do right now. Kakashi explained. This explanation was a sobering moment for Sakura and the other young ninja. They figured a life of a shinobi would be difficult, but what Kakashi went through, let's just say they realized why Kakashi preferred to keep his cards close to his chest, so to speak. The Uzumaki, meanwhile, were surprisingly quiet. Even Kikyo, who tended to overthink and overanalyze anything that was going on whenever she wasn't in the middle of a battle, realized that there really wasn't anything to what Kakashi said that she could truly question. More importantly, she and the other Uzumaki, who were good at detecting lies when they had to be, could tell Kakashi was being as truthful as he would probably ever be, and, given what he said, they realized that Kakashi's reasoning for not being there for Naruto actually made sense. Kakashi, knowing he had yet to finish explaining himself, continued on. While I'm on the subject of Team 7, I'm afraid your accusations are grossly inaccurate. I was chosen to be in charge of Team 7 for the betterment of Sasuke and Naruto, not just one of them. Sakura winced. Does that mean from the very beginning I was just in the way? You may think I played favorites, but I did train my team equally, giving them the same exercises and the same rates. I was trying to bring them into balance before specializing for any of them. Kakashi continued. It was easier said than done since they weren't the most cooperative of genin. I could not teach them anything truly effective because until they learned to cooperate and coordinate themselves, anything they would have learned would have been used counterproductively. Yet you sent this incooperative and ill-prepared team into the Chunin exams. Mia pointed out. If you were hoping to scare them straight, there were better options. I had spent lots of time correcting their stances, teaching them taijutsu and counter moves, basic healing and trapping, identifying things in the wild, and throwing weapons skills. And I taught to all of them, even if each learned at a different rate. Just because ninjutsu was the one thing I didn't teach them or each learned in different ways did not make them unfit to participate. In any case, they had already proven to me that they were more than ready after our mission in the Land of Waves. They went above and beyond the call of duty on a mission that, to be frank, was supposed to be far beyond their capabilities. They were even more incooperative and ill-prepared for that mission than they were for the Chunin exams and had to deal with both Chunin and Jonin level ninja, one of them being Momochi Zabuza himself no less, and yet we succeeded in our mission and lived to tell about it. If that doesn't convince you that they were more than capable of taking the exams, then I don't know what will. Kakashi justified, surprising everyone by how highly he actually thought of his students. Still, Kakashi, if you knew then what you know now, would you have nominated them? Kikyo asked. The Junin just gave the archer a critical look. As I said before, you might have thought they were not ready, but I thought otherwise. And that goes for all three of them. If I thought that even one of the members of my squad was not yet capable of, then they would never have participated. You say that you tried to give them an equal amount of training. Then why didn't you train Naruto during the month-long break? Ray asked. I couldn't. You expect me to believe that? I know for a fact that you can make shadow clones too, Kakashi, and you can make them in large numbers. Not as large as Naruto, but definitely on the high end of normal for a Junin. So providing a single clone that lasts for a couple of hours to teach him something was not impossible. So tell me, why didn't you try it? Don't tell me you were conserving your chakra for Sasuke, since from what I saw you didn't use that much in training him either. You spied on me? Kakashi asked. I believe I asked you a question first. Ray reminded him. Fine, then. Despite what you might think, I did have to conserve my chakra. Kakashi relented. For one thing, I can create a large amount of shadow clones, but only because of my chakra control. I don't have that much chakra, despite what you might think, as I can't maintain those clones long enough to use for training purposes. Even creating just one shadow clone is a drain on my chakra, and as such I can't have one last for more than 30 minutes. I could either train both Naruto and Sasuke at the same time, or I trained Sasuke first and then train Naruto. At the time Sasuke was in greater need of the extra training, Sasuke's opponents in the finals, Gaara, wanted to kill him and probably would have done so before their fight if the opportunity presented itself. Kakashi said, then turned towards Gaara. No offense. None taken. Gaara said before Kakashi continued his explanation. And it wasn't just Gaara I had to worry about. Orochimaru was in the area and he has a rather dangerous interest in Sasuke and had already branded him with a cursed mark, which was another problem I had to deal with. To complicate things even more, both Orochimaru and Gaara would scope him out on occasion even when I was around. I couldn't risk Sasuke's life when he was busy exhausting himself daily to learn a technique he would need to survive his fight with Gaara. I had to stay ready and alert, guarding him like any sensei would. The Uzumaki tried to say something, but Kakashi continued before anyone could interrupt him. After a while, when I was certain Sasuke's risks of attracting unwanted attention and danger to himself were low enough for me to focus in Naruto's training, I decided to check up on Naruto, and, when I did, I saw Jiraiya-sama had already taken him under his wing. I knew at that point that Naruto was in very good hands and would learn more with Jiraiya-sama than I could have taught him at that point, so I let him be and went back to helping Sasuke. I didn't neglect Naruto, I just couldn't help him right away, and, when I was finally able to, someone that could help him even more than I could had beaten me to it. Well, that might be acceptable, but still, did you ever check up to see what Naruto was learning under Jiraiya? For all you know, he wasn't doing anything. Ray asked. Jiraiya frowned, albeit in a more comical way than he probably should have. Hey, I did a lot for Naruto in that month. You taught him how to stand on water and how to summon toads. Neither of which were of any use to him in his fight against Neji. Ray countered.